Is it on? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this hearing or meeting of the Commission, Civilian Oversight Commission for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I'm calling this meeting to order. We have a very full agenda today, and some items are of critical importance, I believe, to the future of this commission and whether it can provide effective oversight of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Commission staff, Tracy Jordan and Robert Flores, will now explain in English and Spanish our procedures for filing public comment.
If you wish to speak in person, please turn in your public comment card here where you see the sign to my right. If you are attending this meeting from a remote location, please raise your hand on WebEx or press *3 on your phone. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to comment on specific agenda items. General public comment will be heard near the end of the meeting and must be limited to topics within the Commission's jurisdiction. Please be respectful of the views expressed by others. Any person engaging in conduct that disrupts this meeting is subject to being removed. I will now turn over to public comments in Spanish to my colleague, Robert Flores.
Le damos la bienvenida a esta reunión a miembros de la comunidad quienes prefieren hacer sus comentarios en español. Le daremos 4 minutos y podemos proveer traducción al inglés. Simplemente diga la palabra español antes de comenzar sus comentarios y le diremos cómo proceder. Gracias.
Thank you, Robert. Tracy, if you would please call the roll of the commissioners.
I will now call the roll. Chair Robert C. Bonner.
Present.
Co-Chair, Co-Vice Chair Luis S. Garcia.
Present.
Co-Vice Chair Hans Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Arthur Callaway. Commissioner Irma Cooper.
Present.
Commissioner Patricia Giggins.
Here.
Commissioner James P. Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Jamon R. Hicks.
Present.
We have 7 commissioners present. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The first item on the agenda is the consent calendar. The consent calendar are really the minutes from our special meeting on February 13th of this year and then our regular meeting on February 20th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion of the minutes? Anything that needs to be corrected that anybody spotted? Hearing none, let me just take a vote here. All those in favor of approving the minutes from both those meetings, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? No abstentions, so that carries unanimously. Before turning to item 5 on the agenda, which is the next item, let me say that at the sheriff's request, I moved up his presentation regarding the commission's 27 recommendations on this agenda. But I note that the commission issued and served 3 subpoenas on the sheriff's department returnable to the commission to this hearing that we're at right now at 9 a.m. this morning. And before we proceed, let me ask whether there is any sheriff's department custodian of records present. And if so, would they identify themselves so we can have that on the record? Well, that's quite distressing. It's 9:15 and we were supposed to have a custodian of records here at 9 a.m. according to the subpoena. Nobody's been excused from appearing under our subpoena. But since none is present, let me just strongly suggest that there be a custodian of records here by 10 a.m. this morning, or the commission will consider that the sheriff's department is defying the commission's subpoenas, all 3 of the subpoenas, which required a personal appearance by a custodian of records. even if the sheriff's department is going to claim on advice of counsel that it's not going to produce some or all of the subpoena documents based on a claim that some or all of those documents are confidential and or must be redacted, and that this commission cannot legally go into closed session to receive them to maintain their confidentiality, that claim must be stated on the record. If no custodian of records appears at 10 a.m., the commission will need to consider filing an action in Superior Court to enforce its subpoenas, just as we did regarding former Sheriff Villanueva when he was then sheriff, and Under Sheriff Murakami. So, and by the way, I just will tell you right now, we'll have a discussion of this, but I'm going to recommend to this commission that we go into closed session to consider the issue of subpoenas so we can have an attorney-client privilege conversation with counsel to make sure that we understand our full legal position with respect to enforcement of our subpoenas. Okay, so there's no custodian. Let's just let the record reflect that there's no custodian of records as required by the 3 subpoenas that this commission's issued and served on February 27th of this year on the Sheriff's Department.
If I
Okay.
may comment, Chair Bonner.
Yes, Sheriff.
At the advice of County Council, for us, we believe, and County Council does, based on their advice, that we're following the law, the process, and based on their advice, that's why there's nobody here of custodial records in regards to the subpoena.
Okay.
As you're aware, we filed a declaratory relief action to go to court so that we can get clarification for all of these requests. This isn't an issue of trying to hide any information. We just want clarification so we can follow the law. What you're asking us to do right now violates the law, according to County Council.
Right.
So we're not here. I'm here. I'm on mic. That's why I'm making this statement on public record that for any information, again, I'm looking forward for a judge, an independent judge, to make that decision.
Okay.
So that we can move forward together as a commission, as a department, and that would include the Inspector General as well.
I appreciate that, Sheriff, and thank you for that explanation. But let me just say something very, very clearly here. And that is, when this commission issues a subpoena under its Measure R authority for a custodian of records from the Sheriff's Department to personally appear and produce documents, that means they have to personally appear and produce documents. County Council gave you contrary advice. County Council has committed malpractice in my judgment, because the custodian of records was not excused by this commission to appear here. The demand was that they appear. So that's number one. Number two, so we will litigate this in court, Sheriff, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. But we're going to be litigating it under an action by this commission against you and the Sheriff's Department to essentially have that court rule that you must have a custodian appear and produce documents or explain to this commission why they're not being produced. If it's a claim of confidentiality, that's fine. We're happy to, you can make the council, your custodian on advice of council can make any claim they want to, although we would hope it would be a good faith claim. But that's number one. Number two, there was a declaratory relief action filed yesterday. And that declaratory relief action has nothing to do, Sheriff, with our subpoenas. It has to do with whether or not the commission, ad hoc committees of the commission, can receive confidential documents. That's not the issue with our subpoenas. These are orders, essentially, or we're going to get a court to, if we have to, we'll get a court to order appearance of custodian of records with these documents. And to properly make a record, if there's a claim of confidentiality, what they're claiming is being redacted based upon confidentiality under 832.7. And we also would want to know from the department whether they would produce those confidential documents to this commission in closed session. We went into closed session. So those are the issues that need to be addressed. But let's not start off. Look, first of all, Sheriff, I want you to know I appreciate your position. I mean, your position is you don't want to provide documents, arguably confidential documents that would violate state law. That's an understandable position. I understand it. But the reality is that we need to enforce our subpoenas, and we believe that they are enforceable, and we believe the positions taken by county council are incorrect. Okay. So, but rather than digress, I guess I should ask if there's any comment from other commissioners, but I would like to get onto the agenda and not get bogged down at this point, because at 10 o'clock, we're going to take this issue back up again.
It is worth noting that this is not simply an affront to the work of this commission, is an affront to the voters of Los Angeles and all Angelenos who voted clearly to grant this commission subpoena power in March of 2020. And I want to make sure that people in this room and that all Angelenos understand the gravity of what we've just heard, because the sheriff is defying the will of the voters of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Well, he is doing it on advice of county council, and I'll make that qualification. Any other comments or thoughts? Yeah, special counsel, IG, Max Huntsman.
Thank you, Judge. Yeah, I would just wanted to clarify, is the sheriff saying that county council advised him not, that the custodian of records should not appear? I fully understand the concept of confidentiality and the idea that that might need to be litigated. But previously, the sheriff department has failed to even respond to investigative requests by the inspector general's office. I requested to meet with the sheriff and his head of IA a year ago, and he refused, which I believe violates our ordinance. And now a subpoena, as you say, has been issued, and there was a date to appear. And I would have no problem if the person came and said, on the advice of counsel, we're not giving you anything. I find it hard to believe everything that was subpoenaed is confidential, given 832.7's discussion of incidents involving serious bodily injury and these being closed cases. But I just want to be absolutely clear. County council said don't appear.
County council has advised exactly what I stated. Everything I've stated is advice from county council. And just for clarification, there's still a meeting slot on my calendar every month for you to appear. You refuse to meet with me.
Okay.
It's not the other way around.
I requested to meet
Wait
with
a
you
minute.
and the head of
Hold
internal
on.
affairs.
This is a commission hearing. It's not an IG sheriff issue. And I want to stay focused here, and I don't want to spend any more time on this, and I'm telling you why. Because at 10 a.m. we'll get, or shortly thereafter, at an appropriate point in our agenda, we're going to go back to this issue. Then we're going to, if there's nobody that appears, we're going to go into closed session. We're going to get advice of counsel, county council, and our council that has been engaged by county council, which is Harvanon, and we're going to get advice as to whether or not we have a viable option here to go into the Superior Court and enforce these subpoenas. Okay, so let's not spend any more time on that, and let's try to move on to something that I hope is going to be more positive on the agenda, and that is the update from the sheriff and as to the commission's recommendations to eliminate deputy gangs and cliques within the sheriff's department. Just as a reminder, before I call on you, Sheriff, in March of 2023, 2 years ago, the commission made 27 recommendations. They're found in the commission's special counsel report and recommendations regarding deputy gangs and cliques. Ridding the sheriff's department of deputy gangs and cliques. By the way, all known deputy cliques are deputy gangs or have evolved into deputy gangs. And this elimination of deputy gangs and cliques is a priority for this commission, and we hope and believe it is for the sheriff. So this morning, Sheriff Luna will present the department's self-assessment of its progress regarding the adoption and or implementation of the commission's 27 recommendations. So Sheriff, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonner and members of the Civilian Oversight Commission. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you to discuss this very, very important topic. The members of the Civilian Oversight Commission and with members of the public, the progress that our department has made in implementing the Civilian Oversight Commission recommendations on the issue of law enforcement gangs and cliques within the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I'm extremely proud to serve as a sheriff of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. and have served in law enforcement for nearly 40 years. I admire the men and women of this department tremendously for the work that they do to serve the millions of residents in Los Angeles County and their willingness to put their lives on the line to help people in need. Law enforcement is absolutely a noble profession. This is why this issue is so important to me, both personally and professionally. Anyone who violates our code of conduct and puts a group or a clique over the department or their service to the community is not worthy of serving in this profession. When I ran for this office, I made it clear that such behavior is not appropriate and contrary to everything that I personally believe in. This is why I'm grateful to the Civilian Oversight Commission, the report. It is an important part of our effort to restore the brilliance of this department and to ensure that it is no longer dealing with the issue of law enforcement gangs or cliques in the future. Since the report was issued, I have taken recommendations very seriously. I also know that the men and women of our department take the recommendations seriously, as I see the work that they are doing to make a difference on this issue every day. It is for this reason that I welcome the opportunity to explain to you the actions we have taken and will continue to take to address the recommendations. I hope and expect that you will join me in recognizing that much work has been done, but also recognizing that a lot of work still needs to be done. Instead, these are things that we should continuously do to ensure that no one in the department considers gangs or cliques a visible option during the course of their careers. I view these as ongoing efforts and expect that we will continue these activities for as long as it takes. Therefore, while much has been done, as I've stated earlier, we still have a lot of work to do. Overview of the recommendations and status. The COC report contains 27 recommendations. 26 of the recommendations apply to our department. Those are the ones that I will be discussing today. Of the 26 recommendations, 19 are completed or significantly in progress. 5 are currently being evaluated by the department or adoption is underway. And 2 of the recommendations I intend to implement or do not intend to implement at this time, in which on each of them, very good recommendations, but I'm taking a different approach. And that's just on 2 of the 26 for us. I will now give you a brief overview of the status of the recommendations. First, I note that details of the status of the department's implementation of the recommendations were submitted to the COC in a chart format, which I believe the COC has made publicly available. The chart is also on the department's website. Second, while I am providing an overview today, I have a number of subject matter experts that are online with me today should they be needed during the question and answer period. In regards to the recommendations under leadership, there are a number of recommendations that deal with leadership in the department, both for me and for other leaders in our department. Strong leadership, transparency, and accountability on the topic of law enforcement gangs is essential to my vision for the department's future. First, we ensure the topic of law enforcement gangs and hate groups is regularly included in all executive level meetings, including the weekly top management team meeting and the Executive Planning Council, Chiefs and Above meeting, and the quarterly risk management forum, captains, lieutenants, and sergeants from stations, and in other critical department activities such as investigations, after action reviews, and implementation of discipline recommendations where appropriate. Further, in February of this year, I led a half-day leadership meeting on the topic of law enforcement gangs for all command staff captains and above. I am happy that a member of this commission, Commissioner Luis Garcia, and staff from the Office of the Inspector General also attended this meeting with us. We also had that day with us several of our federal monitors from federal DOJ from the Antelope Valley. They're with us as well. Frankly, it is my hope that all of you will take advantage of the opportunities to attend our meetings to hear how openly we discuss the topic and to hear the commitment of people in the department in addressing this issue. My goal with this meeting was to emphasize the importance of topic and to remind department leaders that they must support and implement our policies on law enforcement gangs and cliques without reservation. That message was delivered. To my knowledge, it was the first time that captains came together to discuss the issue of law enforcement gangs and hate groups. More importantly, everyone left the meeting understanding their responsibilities on this issue and enthusiastic about their role in addressing this issue. To ensure that all future leaders of the department understand their responsibilities, questions are now asked during the interview process for captains and above, meaning for captains, commanders, chiefs, and assistant sheriffs and undersheriff are now asked questions designed to elicit information about their personal experiences with law enforcement gangs, cliques, and hate groups. The interview questions also ask about their plan, if promoted, to address the issue and ensure compliance. However, this is not all in the terms of my messaging and leadership focus. I speak to all levels of management about this, including attending supervisory level training classes to make my vision known. Not only do I attend supervisory classes at the academy, but I have spoken every academy class since I took office about this issue. My message is clear and unequivocal. I will not accept law enforcement gangs, cliques, or subgroups on the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and neither will they as individuals. Focus group efforts. To reinforce this message, I have instituted the COC's recommendation to develop a department-wide initiative to end law enforcement gangs and cliques. This focus group includes individuals of all leadership levels. I am proud to say that our labor partners now attend these meetings and contribute to this dialogue, consistent with your recommendation to seek support of our labor partners. Furthermore, 2 members of the Office of the Inspector General regularly attend these meetings as well. The focus group is divided into several subcommittees, including training, media, cultural consultants, Central Patrol, which is home to many of the stations named in your report, and messaging. As part of the collective efforts, this team developed a training bulletin and series of videos on this topic. They also helped organize the February meeting of the captains and above. They also work on developing dialogue sessions in the stations with deputies to discuss adverse career consequences of joining gangs or cliques. I am told that there have been robust conversation at the station level with deputies also stating that they are fed up with this specific issue. The focus group shares ideas with each other, discusses how deputies are responding to the discussions taking place at the patrol level, and help ensure buy-in at all levels of leadership. This focus group has more planned in the future, and I look forward to seeing their next ideas. Commitment by all members of the department. What I have explained so far hopefully demonstrates to you that leadership at every level is taking this serious and that I have unequivocally articulated my vision and objectives. In addition, as the commission is aware, the new policy was published last September and became effective in October, and a training bulletin entitled Prohibited Behavior was also recently published. Both are used in formal training, station briefings, and one-on-one mentoring sessions. I am committed to ensuring that every member of this department, from new hires to executive leadership, is committed to these reforms. This starts with ensuring that we are guided by policies that operationalize this commitment. I am proud that the department's new policy prohibiting participation in law enforcement gangs, as defined by Penal Code Section 13670, is in effect as of October of 2024. As of today, 99.6% of the sworn members of our department have read and acknowledged the contents of this new law enforcement gang policy. I have also taken the recommendation that the department evaluate involvement in a law enforcement gang or hate group when making hiring and promotional decisions. We are cognizant of the impact of the hiring and promotional decisions have on our ability to continue implementing much needed reforms across our entire organization. The prohibition against joining or participating in law enforcement gangs as a condition of employment is now in place. In 2023, the Personnel Administration Bureau instituted a process where candidates for employment are advised of this condition. Candidates applying to join the department are required to read and acknowledge the department policy on this issue. The conditional offer of employment was updated in October of 2024 to incorporate this new policy. It requires candidates to agree and acknowledge that they will not associate with, participate in, or join any law enforcement gangs or cliques, and specifies that such association will be grounds for termination. However, we took the COC's recommendation one step further. In addition to making a commitment when you join the department, department members also have to recommit themselves when they are promoted to positions of captain and above. Here, they reaffirm their commitment to the department policies and acknowledge their responsibility in addressing this issue. As stated earlier, all candidates for the position of captain or above are interviewed and are asked questions designed to elicit information regarding this topic. In addition, the personnel records, including disciplinary history of promotional candidates, are evaluated as part of this process. I am told that this is the first time in the department's history that such an effort has been undertaken. While promotional decisions for positions lower than captain are selected through the civil service examination process, even with this process, a review of prior work history, including discipline records, are reviewed. From a structural reform perspective, there are some significant structural reforms that have also been underway. As you are aware, the department has also implemented a two-captain model at the Antelope Valley stations, which allows captains more time to coach and mentor their personnel. I'm very proud that the board accepted my recommendations to fund these positions, meaning the Board of Supervisors. The two-captain model in Lancaster and Palmdale, two exceptionally busy stations, has proven to be invaluable. As a result, they have eliminated a long-standing backlog on the use of force paperwork and in responding to complaints. The result that deputies receive feedback faster and can course correct more easily is extremely important. For example, the result in that number of serious uses of force cases have been lowered. Uses of force incidents in Lancaster were lower in 2024 than in 2023. I am told this has been the first time that use of force was lowered at that station in approximately 9 years. We provided the COC a detailed report on the two-captain model and the benefits that models has in the Antelope Valley and to the department overall. At my direction, the department recently revamped the performance mentoring program, our formal mentoring program for sworn members of our department. Effective mentoring is critical to addressing issues before they become a problem. Our new program seeks to address performance issues through one-on-one mentoring with defined mentoring activities that are tracked. Importantly, or just as importantly, an individualized mentoring plan with a set of goals is developed for each mentee. The topic of law enforcement gangs and the legal consequences for participation in a gang is a required discussion point. The mentee must electronically acknowledge this discussion and their agreement with the commitment to participate in the mentoring. Whether it is through this formal mentoring program or through informal mentoring and supervision on a daily basis, sergeants and lieutenants are trained to, 1, listen and provide actionable feedback to the employee. 2, acknowledge the pressures and temptations prevalent in law enforcement. 3, share their own stories of challenges and successes within the department. Next, initiate discussions of difficult topics, including law enforcement gangs, and to lead by example. The concepts essential to effective mentoring and supervision, including the topic of law enforcement gangs, is now covered in the revised training curriculum for supervisor school, field training officer program and school, patrol school, life class in decision-making, and the command staff level at our captain's college. While we have made all this progress on mentoring by sergeants and lieutenants, we only self-graded ourselves in yellow in that category on the chart because I need to ensure that our systems are working and being implemented effectively. The department has also worked to ensure that the processes for assessing and mentoring indicators of risk by restructuring the ongoing risk management forum process. This process has been revised to focus discussions on the topic and efforts of station leadership to discuss this topic with deputies, including internal investigations, litigation, and other matters. The expectations of the department are also discussed this time as a reinforcement of the zero tolerance policy towards this issue. Regarding investigations, despite these efforts of reform, there are unfortunately times when the department has to engage in discipline. All department personnel have been advised that the department will enforce Penal Code Section 13670. As I stated, all sworn personnel have received an an electronic copy of the new policy and penal code that have been asked electronically to acknowledge that they have read and they understand this policy. New recruits must also sign and acknowledge the form as a condition of employment. Therefore, all department personnel have personally been notified about this policy, its importance, and the fact that allegations of law enforcement gang involvement will absolutely be taken seriously. Let me state this clearly. The department is investigating and will continue to investigate alleged violations of the policies related to law enforcement gangs and/or hate groups. The initial review of cases known as supervisory inquiries are now completed by the Office of Constitutional Policing instead of the initiating unit. I made this change to ensure that there is no appearance of bias and that the investigations are fair and absolutely thorough. Once the inquiry is completed, it is returned to the initiating unit with the recommendation for next steps. Should that command determine an administrative investigation is warranted, the case will be sent to Internal Affairs for administrative investigation. It is unfortunate, but due to the violations of these policies, my administration has dismissed deputies for this conduct that we're describing. While I believe strongly in discipline and accountability, I say this unfortunate because I never want any law enforcement officer to turn to this type of behavior. It's unacceptable. I believe in this profession and the good people in it. I sincerely hope that we can stop employees from going down this path. But if we do not, and discipline is necessary, and my actions show that I'm not afraid to use it when it's necessary. I am told that this is the first time that the department has terminated individuals for violation of the department's policies in these areas. Other investigations are ongoing. Ongoing investigations are confidential, and the details of which cannot be made public, both due to provisions of California law and for the integrity of the investigations while they are in progress. In addition to investigating alleged violations of these policies related to law enforcement gangs and hate groups, the department, through Internal Affairs, has established a list of questions to be used in other internal and criminal investigations that may have a nexus to law enforcement gangs. I have made it very clear to captains and executive leadership of the department that I will also hold them accountable for employees alleged to be involved in a law enforcement gang or clique and for their own actions or, just as important, inactions. Captains, sergeants, and lieutenants found to have supported or ignored these activities will be held accountable. Captains have access to these records for all deputies within their command through the existing PRMS system. Furthermore, newly developed data dashboard systems make access critical and the ability for supervisors and managers to access critical information a lot easier than they ever have been. This system was piloted in North Patrol, and other divisions are now being trained on the system. The department is evaluating and will continuously evaluate whether there are better methods to keep captains informed of the activity of their employees. Furthermore, if an employee is determined to be affiliated with a law enforcement gang or hate group during the course of an investigation, the respective captains, the chain of command, are notified by the PSD command staff. The department has worked with representatives of the district attorney's office to ensure that the department's Brady system is consistent with standard practices and continues evaluating its practices for effectiveness. The department alerts the district attorney's office and the LA City attorney's office of sustained allegations that constitute Brady information on deputies that are subpoenaed to testify in criminal cases. This includes any sustained allegation of violations of the law enforcement gang and hate group. In regards to community engagement, while the department actively engages with community members throughout Los Angeles County, it is also working on improving its community engagement activities. These efforts include establishing a team within the Office of Constitutional Policing focused on enhancing and standardizing department practices, improving community engagement efforts at patrol stations, and sharing best practices throughout our entire department. The department has made tremendous progress in establishing community advisory committees, or CACs, across the department. Every patrol station now has a community advisory committee. Throughout 23 and 24, the department held a series of 12 community meetings focused on the impact of law enforcement gang and cliques in partnership with community-based organizations and the United States Department of Community Relations Service. These meetings held at the 6 LASD patrol stations highlighted in the 2023 COC report were moderated by US DOJ and included over 500 participants over the course of the series. The department drafted a comprehensive report on its community engagement efforts, including these dialogue meetings, which was provided to the COC this past October. As a result of the feedback obtained from these engagement efforts, the department is working on a number of additional efforts to deepen its community engagement activities. This includes continuation of the dialogue meetings and production of community engagement handbook, which will provide a standardized structure for community engagement that can be rolled out department-wide. Just on the remaining items, as I'm getting closer to the end here. Now, I just covered a lot of the work we have undertaken in this area. While we continue in these areas, as I've stated multiple times, we still have a lot of work to do. We have policies that remain in the meet confer process, including the click policy and the logos and tattoo policy. There are two policies that are deeply important to the department, and I am committed to pursuing through the meet and confer process. That's the two policies I just named. Again, click policy, logos, and tattoos. I recognize that the COC is frustrated with the length of time this process is taking. I understand, however, that we are engaged in many meet and confer processes with labor. Having policies that they support and understand is critical to having long-term sustainable change to the department. And that's one of our goals, is to make sure the change lasts. It's not just for a bit and then it goes away, depending on who sits in this seat. As you yourself state in the recommendation number 5, I should seek the support of ALADS and POPA for my vision, policies, and objectives regarding law enforcement gangs and cliques. I have done just that and intend to continue to do that, even though no one likes how long it is taking. And I do appreciate their support. They're tough conversations, but I find them to be very productive and very helpful. There are 2 recommendations which my team is evaluating and which I expect to be presented in the near future for my consideration. Those deal with the recommendation to reassess the dual career track and to assess the feasibility of assigning deputies to patrol first prior to their custody assignment. I have teams evaluating both proposals and will be in a better position to assess whether these proposals are appropriate for the department after I have the benefit of their review. These are 2 recommendations that I am not inclined to institute at this time. I may reconsider this in the future, but at this time, I'm not inclined to adopt. These are, again, for clarification, the 2 that we're saying at this time will not work for us. These are to flatten the chain of command by eliminating a layer of supervision. Eliminating supervision is not an option, in my opinion. Each level serves a very, very important function. However, I am mindful of the reasoning behind the COC's recommendation, which is to ensure that I have more communication with my captains. That is one of the reasons I had the meeting with the captains in February that I discussed. It gave me a chance to address captains directly. The reasoning you offered is something I agree with. Direct communication with my leadership team is essential to ensure the change that we all want. The second recommendation that I am not inclined to adopt is to rotate deputies among stations. First, I do not believe that transferring people as a means to solve a personal problem is appropriate. Second, community policing principles suggest staying and knowing your communities is critically important to effective policing. Further, I am mindful that contract cities, like the deputies assigned to their stations, support them and want them to stay. As a result, I am not inclined to implement this recommendation at this time. I will reconsider, however, should all other recommendations fail in achieving the desired impact. In conclusion, while not everything is done and there is more work to do, a lot of work has taken place. I know it's taken a while to explain a lot of it, but it is sincerely a lot of work that my department has undertaken in the last 2 years. I'm very proud of their efforts, and it took a lot of us to get this done, to accomplish our mutual goal, and to ensure this issue is put into the history books once and for all. And we're not known for this, and we're done for the great work that our men and women do. And again, I just really want to take the time to thank the commission. You are not being ignored. A lot of what you said from the very beginning is in this report, and we continue to work on it. And I also want to thank the Inspector General, because he's been a part of this too, in guiding and mentoring for some of the changes that we've enacted. And again, we have a lot of work to do. So with that, I stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sheriff. I really appreciate that presentation. And I do, before I have just an initial comment and question, but before I do, I just want to acknowledge that Commissioner Arthur Callaway is also present and has been for some time at the meeting. Sheriff, that was a great presentation, and I just want to stay straight off that you're to be commended for moving out on this issue. You realize that deputy gangs and cliques are a problem and have been for quite some time within the Sheriff's Department, several decades actually, and you're the first sheriff to take it on. So God bless you. That said, the existence of deputy gangs, especially within certain of the department's patrol stations, will continue until deputy cliques are banned, until deputy cliques are told in policy that they can no longer associate in unauthorized exclusionary subgroups, including subgroups that call themselves the executioners, the banditos, the regulators, the Spartans, or any new name they come up with, because they will come up, and they are coming up with new names right now at some of these patrol stations. This is a deeply, deeply embedded cultural issue within the department. So it's going to take policy that goes beyond just a policy that would ban participation in law enforcement gangs, as the legislature has defined that. It's going to take a policy that clearly bans participation in or joining deputy cliques. And so you need to replace Sheriff Villanueva's feeble policy in that area, by the way. He actually did refer to deputy cliques. It's just the policy was totally unenforceable. That's, let me just say also, before I call on my fellow commissioners for questions or comments they might have, flattening the chain of command. I realize you're not inclined to do that now, but let me just tell you, Sheriff, I mean, I've led several very large federal law enforcement organizations, and to say that there would be 6 layers between me and the captains of the stations, the people that are heading up field divisions, that's a lot of layers. And that's, you've got the undersheriff, you've got assistant sheriff, then you've got a chief, and you've got a commander until you get to the captain. So I think the thing to do here at some point, when you actually have let's say an outside organization, take a look at the organizational structure, get some recommendations as to how the sheriff can actually be closer to the captains to make sure the sheriff's policies are implemented, because any sheriff in the past was unable to do anything because the captains never got the message, or they didn't want to hear the message, and they weren't held to account. And only you can do this. The other thing on transfers, or involuntary transfers, voluntary transfers are always permitted under the union agreement, but involuntary transfer, I'm okay with that. You're okay, reject that for now. But if a year from now, you cannot come back to this commission and say that there are no longer deputy cliques within the department at any of these patrol stations, then I'm going to say you got to start doing that, because that can be effective. It's not the best solution. I totally agree with that. So those are my 2 overall comments. So you need to adopt, by the way, to be specific, it's recommendation number 3 of the commission to adopt a policy prohibiting joining or participating in deputy cliques. And we elaborated that, and it's Exhibit A to the report and recommendations of this commission that we submitted to the sheriff in was February of 2023, 2023. Yes, yeah, 2 years ago. Okay, so with that, let me open it up for any questions of the sheriff from members of the commission or comments they would wish to make. Okay, let me start off with Irma, and then I have Jamon and Patty.
Sheriff, I really appreciate your report. I thought it was very, very clear. You have done a lot of hard work, and I know it's tough to make a lot of changes. but I am concerned. And I need you to clarify, because I don't know if I misheard you when you were talking about number 4, the training, when you talked about the 5 teams in terms of training, media, cultural, central patrol, and messaging. I thought I heard you say that your people were tired of discussing. Did I mishear you on that?
Let me clarify. What I was trying to articulate is that the majority of our department, I'm going to say 90%, are tired about hearing about the deputy gang issue. They don't want it. They don't want it as part of our department. They don't. It's not that they're tired of us talking about it. They're tired about the issue being out there and us not resolving it. They're on our side. They want to get rid of it. They're amazing people. They don't want, when they talk about the LA County Sheriff's Department, they don't want it associated with gang stuff. That's the way the majority of our department feels. That's what I meant to say. If it didn't come out that way, I apologize.
Okay, because I understand that, but I know they're here to protect and serve. And when I look out at the audience, they spend a lot of their time coming here. There's fees associated with the cost of getting here. And they're tired of coming here every month telling us the same thing also. So I just have to speak up for the public, because that's why I asked you to clarify.
You can raise your hands.
You know, the thing is, this is an old problem, 50 years, and we need the sheriffs to protect and serve. My thing is, if all the good cops, that 90% stand up against the ones that are not behaving, we wouldn't be here today discussing it. So I'm hoping that 90% that you're talking about that want to clean up this topic truly stand up and clean it up.
Is Patty or Jamon? I didn't see who was Patty.
Go for it.
No, go ahead. You go. You go.
Hello, Sheriff, how are you? Regarding recommendation 17, assessing the feasibility of not requiring the first assignment of a new deputy to custody, did you say that one was initially not implemented, but now is being reassessed during the meeting and confer process?
We are currently assessing that. I'm having it reviewed, and probably in the short term, there will be presentations to me about how we may be possibly going that direction.
I understand the reasons for why the commission wants that recommendation. What's the other argument as to why, what would the other side say as to why that would be an issue to not have the deputy start in custody?
There's a variety of reasons. One, you have to have custody staffed. We have thousands of employees assigned to custody staff positions. So if we start eliminating some of those positions, we have to restructure and figure out how that's going to occur. That's one of many. A lot of people in the department feel that that's the appropriate follow-up to the academy training experience, is to go in there and learn how to deal with folks. Not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying those are some of the reasons. Not as easy as you think, but I'm really proud of the department because they're willing to think out of the box and look at it differently.
Patty?
Okay, yeah, thank you, sir, Sheriff, for, put this over here, for this report and outlining the progress that's been made, the challenges that you still have. One of the things that I'm appreciating hearing about is the reaffirmation upon promotion. You know, that shows that you are actually going up the ladder to make sure that what people, how people were behaving or when they started out, that they are continuing to uphold exceptional behavior, and that as they are promoted, they will help you, hopefully, in eliminating this long history of the deputy gangs. I also, I'm glad to hear that the two captain model has been funded and it's working. I'm liking this creativity, I guess is what I want to say, you know, kind of thinking a little bit outside the box about to get your arms and your leadership team getting their arms around this issue. And again, we're always, you know, frustrated by the policies that seem, and from our perspective, I'll use the term stuck in meet and confer. That's not a term you might use, but, you know, for us in our dedication and enthusiasm and our purpose to support you in these changes is that we do feel like it's kind of a stuckness sometimes. And that is for you to deal with, and that is for us to continue to support you in that and to urge you to get unstuck on those issues. But thank you very much. This is a lot of progress. When we think of 50 years, when we think of this commission working on it for 9 years, clearly you have a sincere dedication to fulfilling as many of the 27 recommendations that it is within your power to do. And I say great appreciation.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? Hans?
Yeah, I just want to note that this is a great report and it provides an update to the lingering or ongoing tracking that I think members of this commission have been doing about the 27 recommendations issued 2 years ago, almost to the day. And I really appreciate the focus on training and on implementing and consideration and implementing of those guidelines in the training process. Just one inconvenient caveat I want to offer is that even this week, I was in receipt of a whistleblower account of yet a new deputy gang emerging at the Palmdale station and of a new station gang tattoo and logo surfacing in the Antelope Valley. And the reporting in that whistleblower confidential communication that participation in that deputy gang, that emerging deputy gang, has been indispensable to the rise and promotion and longevity of members of that station. And the discouraging signal that sent to this whistleblower about continuing to stay in that station. And so I just want to remind my fellow commissioners and perhaps some who don't need reminding about their tenacious work on this issue over many years, and Angelenos who are tuning in, that deputy gangs is not a fixed problem and it continues to evolve, and new deputy gangs are continuing to surface even as we take this overdue action to try to root them out. And I just want to ask if, in light of some of the evidence provided in the report and the recommendations, and including testimony here, such as validated in this whistleblower account, that you might reconsider dispensing with the recommendation about transferring deputies between stations. Because when there is evidence that we have documented and that continues to be reported that people get ahead within stations because of participation in deputy gangs and retaliation against witnesses and victims' families in some cases, maybe that does need to be taken into more serious account, the possibility of transfers and shifting deputies between stations, as you take such conscientious efforts to try to root them out.
In regards to transferring problems, I'm not a believer in that. If there's a problem employee and there's evidence and facts that support it, they don't need to be on this department. They don't need to be in any station anywhere in the county. I think that is a strategy that has been used, maybe overused. And as you see the results, most of you have said this has happened for 50 years because problems were transferred. I don't believe in transferring problems. I believe in eliminating problems. And in regards to the allegations about the Palmdale station, I'm not aware of what you just said. I believe that we're making significant progress. I believe a lot of work still needs to be done. I believe this is a different department today than it was 2.5 years ago. And the work continues. So I look forward with my staff in getting this new allegation and then trying to work through the facts of it to see if it's true.
Other questions or comments from, okay, yeah, Commissioner Callaway.
I want to kind of understand with the new mantra of that deputy gangs and cliques are not appropriate at the stations. Are you saying that there's a new, like, if they're called out, is there a process that y'all have internally that we don't know about, that like you've been alleged to be in a deputy gang, you have, prior tattoo, all that stuff, and that you're not allowed to be, patrolling the streets until the allegation is actually understood, investigated thoroughly, that person, personnel file doesn't have, that they've use of forces, all that stuff. Like, are we taking them off the street? I mean, because I don't believe in the transfer thing too, because, to push them to Hollywood so they can beat people up in Hollywood. But I would like to know, to be confident that once that is said, what happens? Like, how do I, as a citizen, and I see the tattoo, report it to you, and then what is the process to make sure that they don't get to actually patrol the streets until it's been adjudicated?
I don't ignore tattoos, but I'm focused on personnel conduct. So if there are allegations of an employee involved in certain misconduct, it's going to be most likely in their personnel file. So you look for patterns and trends. And as I stated to Commissioner Johnson, if the evidence is there that they're involved in any misconduct that violates the policy, they're going to be held accountable. Depending on the allegation, it depends on what discipline, if any, is going to be attached to that.
All right. Thank you for that, Sheriff. Let's proceed here. First of all, before we go to the next item, it seems to me that the commission needs to update its January 5th scorecard in light of the sheriff's presentation. And I'm going to be requesting the ad hoc committee regarding deputy gangs and cliques to working with staff to update the scorecard and report back regarding its assessment as to how many recommendations have been implemented, partially implemented, or not implemented, or rejected. We know 2 are rejected. And I'll ask for the ad hoc committee to report back to the full commission on this at our April meeting. I'm going to sort of skip ahead on the agenda here, but before I do so, let me just, for the record, is there any custodian of records of the Sheriff's Department? Yeah, let me note the time is now 10:08. Is there any custodian of records appearing on behalf of the Sheriff's Department in response to the commission's 3 subpoenas?
No.
Okay, so we'll take that up momentarily, but I want to skip ahead in the agenda partly because the sheriff is here. And we have on the agenda, it's item 9C, if you'd go to that. And that's a report under the executive director's report, but it's a report with respect to the town hall in East LA that took place in late February of this year, the commission's town hall meeting. And as a result of that town hall meeting, there's a proposed recommendation or motion before this commission to essentially recommend to the sheriff that he ban any offensive or inappropriate station logo. I'm using station in quotes here. Any station logo that is offensive and or inappropriate, and that specifically that he take action to ban the use of the Fort Apache logo at the East LA station, and that he do that forthwith, without delay, immediately. So we have that motion on, but the first thing before we get to it, and I want to hear from the sheriff on this, but before we get to it, Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Garcia were at that town hall And I think it'd be worthy of having at least a discussion of essentially the gist of what came out of that town hall meeting. Could I start with you, Commissioner Johnson? Or by the way, I should ask the executive director, did you want to report first on this or? Okay.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank my fellow co-vice chair for participating in the East LA Town Hall on February 27th. The gathering was prompted by reports of Sheriff Department intervention and response of a disproportionate nature to
Oh, and it's not 11.
crowd celebrations of the Los Angeles Dodgers victories in the playoffs and in the first World Series game. And the evidence provided by eyewitnesses motivated the commission to consider holding another town hall in East LA, following up on prior ones, to address concerns by the community of disproportionate response by the Sheriff's Department to those celebrations, and also to share eyewitness video from some of those experiences in the community about the Sheriff's Department, responses that put the health and safety of some residents at risk. The forum on the 27th consisted of, I think, somewhere near 80 members of the community participating, along with 2 commissioners and the commission executive director and several team members, led by Robert Flores, who did an excellent job of convening the forum and in soliciting community participation in it. And I think some of the testimony going back 50 years, expressing both frustration and hope at the state of the community's effort to inform and engage the East LA Sheriff's Station in particular, and the Sheriff's Department more generally, in understanding the community's concerns over hostile badges worn by Sheriff's Department members, and some which eyewitnesses reported seeing on sheriff's deputies during the responses in October of 2024, were a great motivation for the forum to call out that experience in the community and the damage that such exclusive badges and us versus them depictions of sheriff's deputies' relationship with the community created, and the longstanding rift and distrust that left in the community, with many different testimonies provided about that from stakeholders. I'll also pass it to my co-vice chair for any feedback.
Please.
So when I participated in this event, I want to thank the people, all the residents of unincorporated East LA who showed up. As I listened to the public comments, we had a diverse set of insights on the relationship that the community has had with the East LA Sheriff's Station over the past 50 years as a benchmark, and in the present time. And, one of the things that I've took away from it was the, hearing from those residents that are, don't have a voice, particularly the Spanish-speaking population that presented their public comments and, do have some level of trust with, the role the Sheriff's Department has in the community. However, there's some areas for improvement. And I think, the bulk of the comments were seeking a solution to this problem, policing a percentage that, has happened for decades in the community. And with that, I think it's also an opportunity for the Sheriff's Department, as well as our role as an oversight body, to build, to work on building trust and listening to all the diverse set of views that were coming out. One of the voices that I particularly was listening to, and this is coming from a person who, has been formerly incarcerated, and the level of damage that, the voice of the Whittier Area Business Association So we had, this person had the courage to speak up. And I think, in that community forum, I don't think there was opposition to what he was saying because, I think everybody does have a right to demonstrate and or to celebrate and to demonstrate. But then, things go sideways quickly and then there's people that get injured and then it just becomes this whole cycle that has impacted that community for, like it's been said, over 50 years. I don't claim to come from the east side, but I lived for 2 years in the east side and unincorporated and have family members and good close friends. So I think, again, it was a great forum that brought out a lot of open communication that I hope is listened to the sheriff's department and to the captains and to the leadership that we have sitting a couple seats over. Because the patrol operations, I think they're, going back to what the sheriff said was, there's 90%, 90% that are doing their jobs and that other 10% or maybe lower or maybe higher, there has a lot of work to be done. And I think moving forward, I think it's just for us as a body to continue to build those relationships with the community so we can be a bridge between us and the sheriff's department.
Executive Director Mosley, do you want to add anything?
Yes, I think it was an excellent forum. It's always good to be able to hear from the community. I know with myself, this is my first listening session here, as well as some of our staff. So even with a limited staff, we do understand the importance of community engagement in civilian oversight of law enforcement. With that said, I do recognize that some of our community members that are here today also attended, the in-person listening session and also participated virtually. So let me just go back, and I know it's an all hands on deck to try to do this work with limited staff. So kudos to the staff and also our community engagement person. We're going to be having more of these listening sessions because we do want to hear from the community. So we can gather that information and bring it back to the ad hoc committees. So with that said, I think that, we welcome the feedback from community members. It is important that when we coordinate these sessions, we are taking everything into consideration. We did get some feedback from the department on things that, I guess, hiccups, let me just call it hiccups in our planning. So, we can assure that we will do better when we have our next listening session up in AV on how to file a complaint. That's coming on March 27th. Based on the numbers, and I have my numbers written down here somewhere, I can't see them. We did have 85 people in attendance in person. There were 80 that were virtually attending the session. We had 24 public comments and 227 YouTube views, and those YouTube views will continue to go up. So that's my feedback on it. So it is a work in progress, being able to do these listening sessions and also the mini virtual conferences, which we will also be planning further.
Before opening this up for questions or comments, though, let me say that I wasn't at the town hall meeting in East LA, but I did listen to the entire 2 hours plus meeting on video and audio. And let me just say, it was one of the best town halls the commission has ever put on, perhaps the best, and I do want to thank Robert Flores for that. Secondly, it was clear, just listening from the public comments, how deeply rooted and offensive the Fort Apache logo is in East Los Angeles, to the East Los Angeles community. I mean, it's visceral. And it doesn't matter what it has Fort Apache on it. They know that logo. It's the helmet over the boot. That's the logo. And it's visible in the East LA station. Now, by the way, Sheriff McDonald, he banned that logo. Villanueva came back, when he came in, he restored that logo to East LA. So this sheriff, and unfortunately had to leave, unfortunately had to leave. This sheriff needs to immediately take action to ban that logo. And so we put on a motion and the motion is to urge the sheriff to immediately adopt a policy banning offensive and inappropriate station logos, specifically the Fort Apache logo. Now, I want to move and second that, but I also want to open up, to the commissioners, any discussion or dialogue you have about the town hall meeting and then specifically about this motion. But I would like a motion and second so we discuss it.
Chair,
Is that a move? Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded, but let's discuss the whole issue of the East Town Hall. I didn't mean to limit it to that. There were other issues that came up. So Patty, did you, Irma?
I just wanted to mention that I was also at that town hall meeting. And what impressed me the most was the history of that area and the generations that have lived in that area. They could tell you what happened 30, 40 years ago. They had raised their children there. They loved that area and they are still there. But they are tired of being mistreated and abused, and they want it to stop. And that logo is very, very offensive to them. And they felt like they were celebrating. They loved the Dodgers. And they were just walking home, and all of a sudden, tear gas, all this crazy stuff happening, and they have their families and children. They're very family oriented. And how would you like that kind of mess to happen to your child? It was very, very a good listening session. And I was really impressed that they all came out with their families at that time of night. So we have to make it convenient for them to come and voice their opinions.
But Commissioner Johnson, the rules of this commission are, you don't applaud when you like what somebody said. Look, it's fine. We used to do this, right? You want to raise the roof,
It's good.
but let's not applaud people because it's signaling things that, in any event, the rules are no applause. And I can't enforce those rules to members of the public or anybody else if the commission itself doesn't observe our own rules. So thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, sorry.
Okay,
Patty.
okay. I was not at this past listening session in East LA, but I was at the one, and you were there. I think it was 6 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago.
I was there.
And you were there. And it was the same thing then about that Fort Apache logo. Back then, it was, I mean, the community was very clear about the damage and the constant reminding of the hurt and the intimidation. Right. So I'm really glad that this is being looked at again. And of course, I'm really hopeful that the sheriff will just take care of it. Just take it down.
Great. Any other questions or comments about the town hall generally or about the motion? Okay, we're going to have, I think, public comment on, because we have a motion here. So do we have public comment on this specific agenda item, which is, this is actually, I don't know, how do we do this? This is actually part of the executive director's report. But since we have a motion, we should have public comment now and then so we can. vote on the
Chair,
motion.
we have public comment on agenda item 5 when the sheriff spoke. Do you want to take that?
The 27 recommendations.
That
Yeah,
is correct.
We should, maybe we could combine both of these too. If anybody wants to make public comment on the getting rid of the Fort Apache logo or the East LA, but you can do both of them if you want. But anybody that's signed up to comment on the sheriff's presentation on the status of the 27 recommendations to rid the department of deputy gangs and cliques, let's call them and let's have public comment.
Okay, our first public comment is from Steve Hill. And if we can have Vanessa Perez stand in line, please.
Sir.
Hello, once again, Commissioner Bonner, I wanted to make these statements while the sheriff was here because I spoke to him about 2 years ago about the arrest of an activist, which would be me. My name is Steve Hill. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran and a retired peace officer. I just want to put it on the record that I went to a hearing Friday of people, prohibited people, people are prohibited to have firearms. And I couldn't believe it, but she couldn't hear the case because I wasn't released from a mental institution. And I've been telling everybody, been screaming at everybody about this for years. I mean, this has destroyed my life. My wife and I are getting divorced. We're going to have to sell our house. Yes, sir.
You know, Mr. Hill, this isn't really addressing the 27 recommendations or the East LA, and I'm going to give you time today. Believe me, I know you're here, and we want to hear you. But actually, just to keep this thing moving, I need to have the people who wanted to speak on the 27 recommendations and the sheriff's report on where the status of those recommendations. So could I ask you to just defer until we get to general public comment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. 27 recommendations for East LA Town Hall.
Okay,
Board of Action.
Vanessa Perez is going to pass. We have Jacqueline Venters. Please go next. And then Cindy Nunez, stand in line, please.
Good morning, everyone. Jacqueline Venters, lifetime member of the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice, community advocate and a parent. The sheriff was speaking on investigation. I feel like the sheriff department should not be allowed to investigate themselves. This is why some of these things are passing, you know, because they're investigating themselves. From my journey of my 14 years of fighting for justice for my son, I've seen the corrupt, not just in the sheriff department, but it goes into the courtrooms too. The homicide investigators, they work with them. Internal affairs, they work with them. How can you get justice when, you know, these are their friends? They're protecting their agency. So therefore, some of these deputies are getting away with murder, attempted murder, robbery. They're getting away with crimes. And if they're not held accountable, this is why this stuff continue. They know about the gangs. The gangs exist. We brought all kind of information here for you guys, showing proof that they exist. And it's not fair to these people that come in here every month and share their concerns about they lost their loved one. God save mine. But what are they going to do with these families? Who's going to investigate? Who's going to take on those tasks? Mac Huntsman was on my side. He sent some information requests over to the sheriff department for my son. They turned a blind eye 2 times. Then they sent a fraudulent note saying that they investigated. McDonald, Villanueva, all of them are part of this. And I know that they didn't investigate because my son is home. If they had investigated, this deputy would be in jail right now. Somebody needs to investigate him. I put a package together today.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Better.
Next, Cindy Nunez and Gina Youngblood, if you can join the line, please.
Good morning, Commission. It's been 371 days for us. Your teams are exhausted. We as families, we're super exhausted. I don't want to be here. Your department put us here. That's why I'm here. You stated it, LASD stated, Luna stated in 2024, the use of force by deputies in Lancaster were lower in 2024. Were Francisco Nunez and Eugene Youngblood considered in your numbers for 2024? They're kidnapping, not booking people in the station, not rendering medical care. Under the color of law, Lancaster is out there kidnapping, again, torturing, and killing residents inside and outside the station. What happens to families like mine and the Youngbloods? Message to captains wasn't delivered, and I'll tell you why. Captain Bartlett validates and supports all deputy gang activities in Lancaster and sends letters after evidence has been provided of harassment, intimidation, and surveillance. Even then sends me letters that his deputies are acting per policy. We have deputies continuously violating people's rights, such as Deputy Trevor Kirk, Aaron Tanner, Albert White, Deputy Jimenez, Deputy Simi, Whitty, Deputy Quesada, the group responsible for Eugene Youngblood's murder. I mean, the list goes on every day. And I find it very odd that the Undersheriff, April Tardy, is overlooking the deputy gang focus groups, as she herself has a deputy gang tattoo, but okay. A simple form isn't enough anymore. When is Sheriff Luna really going to make an example out of these deputy gangs and all this cover up within the cases? Because coming here once a month for 1 hour with 0 answers just isn't enough anymore. We need answers. Our loved ones weren't just a number. Francisco Nunez belonged to us. Eugene Youngblood belonged to them. We want to know the status of Francisco Nunez. It's been 371 days. These deputy gangs are not gone. They're just continuing their madness. They're harassing me. They're taking pictures of my kids. I want to know where those pictures are going. Why is my house being surveillance?
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Gina Youngblood.
Youngblood.
Yes, I want to say that I see it every day. I'm in the area of Palmdale, Lancaster. It's growing. It's such a raw area to where they can get away with it. You know, they feel that they can get away with it. And they target Black and brown people every day. They harass. You put in incidents reports, they go missing. It's nothing happening to them out there. This is getting out of control, and it needs to be investigated because they are getting away with it. They're getting away with murder, harassment, use of force every day. They just run it. It's like they free falling out there. They running amok. I see it. I live it every day. My kids, junior high school kids, can't walk the streets. They pulling them over for God knows why. I see it when I'm driving. I see it. They got an old man in a wheelchair. I just seen it the other day, actually. A lady with her basket. It's 5 or 6 of them. And actually, if you ask them, they'll tell you that they are from a gang, which is called the Rattlesnakes.
Thank you. We'll now go to online comments. Julie Martinez, you have been unmuted. We're going to move on. Deanna Brock, you have been unmuted.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. And good morning. I did listen to the presentation. I did feel that the presentation was clear, but too simple and too surface level. And I do have 2 questions for the Sheriff Luna. What was the community input and community involvement in this? Many of the community members know and can identify gang members because of harassment. My family personally was affected when a bandito killed my grandson at a routine traffic stop. Before the memorial was over, I was confronted with by a community member who identified Saavedra as a member of a deputy gang. And had I not seen it with my own eyes, deputy gang members rolled into the memorial area with their windows down, throwing their gang signs and being really rude and disruptive. So the community does know. You need to go back, you need to circle back and go back into the community. The second question has Deputy Luna created a Cal Gang database for sheriff deputy gangs? Just as our community are demonized and our youth are demonized as being part of a gang based on just a tattoo. We in the community are really tired of hearing the tattoo is not problematic. It's the action of the sheriff. Well, apply the same California laws that are used against our community against these deputy gang members and create a Cal Gang database of your sheriff department. Also, lastly, it should never be a condition of employment that you will tolerate gang tattoos, gang activity, and what these gang members do to our community. It should be an automatic
Thank
firing.
you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Deanna Brock. You have been unmuted. Deanna
Wanted
Brock.
to talk about the subpoenas that are refusing to be presented.
Deanna, we're not on that item yet. We'll put you back in the queue if you can raise your hand when that item comes back up. Thank you. We have Youssef Miller. Youssef Miller, you have been unmuted.
Custody, California. And I stand with the families in saying that when we're investigating these kinds of things, it definitely needs to be independent investigation because we know it's a conflict of interest. There's no way you can get the community support, the community comfort, and the community feeling that there's going to be justice or anything done if the law enforcement is investigating these issues on their own, because it's going to come up the same way. We can predict how it's going to come out just by the conflict of interest and who's investigating. We really need to take this part seriously. A lot of these family members are investigated by the same team that done the thing that they are complaining about. This is absolutely, it makes no sense. So we want a clear and defined separation between the incident and the investigation system that investigates law enforcement because the conflict of interest. And then when you come back with a result and throw it back in the family's faces, they feel insulted because it's by the same entity. These gangs, these incidents of death at the hands of law enforcement, it doesn't seem that it go anywhere. Therefore, a lot of families won't even speak up. Some families just be like, okay, this is just the system. This is just the way it is. We have nothing to say about it. But like one speaker had mentioned before, you really need to reach into the community. What was the process? How did you advertise to the community? Was it specific community members or was it a wide general call? And how did that call go out? Did it go out to the community where they could access it, or was it narrow and not inclusive in the call for community input if it was done? This is super important because there are issues in the
Thank you.
community. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Lori Atwater. Lori, you have been unmuted. Lori? You have been unmuted.
Hello?
We hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I need some help. I have some direct conflict with everything you guys are saying with the reality I'm experiencing. I had a 15-acre property in East Palmdale and was attacked by deputy gangs on May 1st, 2020. I believe it was an initiation. P.S. I'm a former deputy that served the law enforcement community for the last 40 years. I gave my career to gender equality litigation after Rodney King and am passionate about integrity in the sheriff's department. I have a current client load for income taxes of around 500 law enforcement families that I've served for the last 29 years. And I'm a proud girl from Los Angeles that believes in the integrity of the sheriff's department in spite of what I've been experiencing. So after my attack, I approached Max Huntsman, tried for a solid year to get help from him. I had charges made up against me for a gun I bought legally that were later dismissed. I'm on the DOJ's witness list for the sealed pattern and practices investigation. And most recently, apparently the county fired the deputy who beat me up and never reported the use of force. And he's living in another state. And instead of trying to own his behavior, your contract law firm is trying to dismiss the case as it involves him because he hid from service and was served late. Although he was wearing the tanning green when he attacked me and he was following the instruction of his training officer. I'm not sure where to go for help. I'm my own attorney at the moment in the civil case. I have tons of information. I have out-of-state witnesses that'll give you 30 years of data, including the former auditor of the DB in Palmdale, a lieutenant who did a DB. I have
Thank you.
lots of information.
Thank you. Our last public comment in the room is from Civil Brand Commissioner Eric Miller.
Mr. Miller.
Hi, just very quickly, I'm appearing in my capacity, not as a civil brand commissioner, but as a professor at Loyola Law School, Los Angeles. And I just wanted to quickly respond to what I took was one of the remarks from Sheriff Luna, which said that he was primarily interested in the actions by the deputies that appear in the disciplinary record, not in tattoos and other indications of gang membership. That strikes me as a misunderstanding of how gangs work. In fact, a deeply troubling misunderstanding of how gangs work, because gangs work by having multiple members who occupy different roles, only some of which involve actual instances of violence and other things that might appear in the disciplinary record. And so when you have, for example, an undersheriff who is tattooed, who is not engaging in overt acts of indiscipline, but maybe promoting other gang members to positions of power within the sheriff's department, especially as we've heard from Commissioner Cooper, that there is a deep-seated 50-year tradition of gang activity in the county, then it strikes me as deeply unsatisfactory for Sheriff Luna to say that the major thing that he's going to focus on in terms of determining gang activity in the department is overt activity that appears in the disciplinary record. It seems that that is a very shallow way of addressing what is a 50-year-long, deep-seated set of practices in the sheriff's department, and is unlikely to go very far to rooting out the existence of gangs in the department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I might just say, are there further comments?
That was the last public comment, Chair.
Yeah. I just feel, I know there's been the assertion that Undersheriff April Tardy may have a gang tattoo. All I can say is somehow we've been told that it's a station tattoo. That doesn't mean that it's not offensive and should, but I don't know. We don't know. Was it a previous deputy clique, deputy gang, or is it a station tattoo? We don't know. It certainly raises some concerns, and we'd like clarification because it raises some concerns. But to have the undersheriff, the number 2 person, if in fact she had been associated with a deputy clique or a deputy gang in the past, but again, we just don't know. We'd have to actually get further testimony or information on that. Now, we could probably take a recess at this point, and I'm sure everybody would applaud the chair. Well, not applaud. They would raise the ceiling for.
Hey, can I make a question?
I'm wondering, if you could indulge me at 5 minutes, I just want to tee something up here, and then we'll take our recess.
Can I get a question in about what you just said, Chair Bonner?
What, I can't hear who's speaking.
It's me, Arthur, on the left.
Oh,
Yeah,
but
just a quick question. Is there any way for us to actually, from what he just said, to understand the specifics on the strategy to root out gangs? Because that is true. If that's the main strategy, we should be recommending that it is a more comprehensive way so that we can actually get to gang members, because it is very true that, the boss, in any mafia movie, the boss usually isn't the one actually doing the violence. They're usually putting people in power to do the violence. So it is concerning to me when he did answer that question. And I think that we should, do some type of game planning to understand what's actually being done, because it can't just be, did you get caught? That's not how it should work.
That's a good point. And I think what we should do, Commissioner Callaway, is let's refer that to the deputy gang ad hoc committee to discuss it, because what you're raising is a question of whether we need to go beyond the 27 recommendations we've made even if they all get implemented, which is not going to happen apparently, but looking at it more, perhaps more granularly with some additional recommendations to the sheriff. Now, okay, since you're all going to bear with me for a moment, I actually am going to start agenda item number 6. It's the return of the commission's 3 subpoenas. And I just want to say that a couple of things before we take our recess about that. First of all, these subpoenas really go to the ability of this commission through its subpoena power to access and review sheriff's department reports and documents that are essential to the commission's ability to perform effective oversight. And just by way of reminder to the commission and others, in March 2020, 5 years ago, the Los Angeles County voters overwhelmingly approved Measure R, giving this commission the independent authority to subpoena witnesses and documents. Oh gosh, okay. Thank you. Never mind. My executive director has correctly informed me that before I turn to agenda item number 6, the return of the subpoenas, we actually did have a motion that was seconded and discussed. Thank you, and I was rushing. Okay, but let me ask. Okay, do I need to restate the motion?
Chair, yes, if you could please restate the motion for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, the motion is to urge the sheriff to immediately adopt a policy banning offensive and inappropriate station logos, specifically the Fort Apache logo. That's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion before we take a vote? I see none. So let's do a roll call vote on that.
Yes, I will now take the roll. When your name is called, please state if you are in favor of the motion with aye, or if you're opposed, state nay. Chair Robert C. Bonner.
Aye.
Co-Vice Chair Louis S. Garcia. Co-Vice Chair Hans Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Arthur Callaway.
Aye.
Commissioner Irma Cooper.
Aye.
Commissioner Patricia Giggins.
Yes.
Commissioner James P. Harris.
Yes.
Commissioner Jaman R. Hicks.
Yes.
Chair Bonner, we have 8 ayes, 0 nays, 0 absent. This motion passes.
All right. So now moving to item 6 on the agenda, return of the commission's 3 subpoenas. I was just making the point that it was 5 years ago that LA County voters gave the commission independent authority to subpoena witnesses and documents. And when I say independent, I'm using the words that then County Counsel Mary Wickham used in her ballot statement regarding Measure R. In other words, she said that this would be giving the commission independent subpoena power, not subpoena power delegated to us by the Board of Supervisors or anybody else. It's independent subpoena power. This is a point that County Council apparently has failed. They can't get their head around this point, that this is independent subpoena authority of this commission. It's not the Board of Supervisors. All right. So, and it's the commission, therefore, that has an interest in enforcing its subpoenas. It's our interest. It's our subpoena power. We have an interest in enforcing our subpoenas. At our last meeting, we voted to issue 3 separate document subpoenas on the Sheriff's Department, and they were issued and served. And although, by the way, I note that we've used subpoena power on under Measure R on a number of occasions, these are our first document subpoenas on the Sheriff's Department itself. Each of them specifically described documents subpoenaed, the document subpoenaed relating to deputies' use of force against, in one subpoena, Andres Guardado, who was subject to lethal use of force. He's no longer with us. Emmett Brock and Joseph Andrew Perez. So there are 3 subpoenas, each one related to a different person who was subject to use of force by the Sheriff's Department. I want to say we resorted to these subpoenas only after our previous efforts requesting the Sheriff's Department to voluntarily share documents with this commission through what we call requests to review documents or information were rejected. All of them have been rejected on the claim that such documents were confidential under state law and on advice that they received from county council. There is no custodian of records present here today in response to our 3 subpoenas. I frankly find that, first of all, and we heard from the sheriff that was on advice of county council. As a former federal judge, as a person who's practiced law for many years, I find this extraordinary and frankly disrespectful to this commission and not lawful. Custodian of record, they needed to provide a custodian of records, and they've simply thumbed their nose at us and said, well, we're not going to do that. Okay, so for the record, I need to point out that last night we got a letter from Under Sheriff April Tardy. Last night, excuse me. We got sorry for that moment. We got a letter from April Tardy. I'll make it part of the record, but basically she said that they had that there's some sort of a URL drive that has the few documents that they're willing to provide this commission. And so I'll make her letter part of the record in this proceeding. But let me just say that the positions stated are not well taken. What I don't want to do is simply enforce our subpoena to get a custodian of record to appear. And for that purpose, I want her letter in the record, because the record that we have before us without a custodian of records is that with respect to the Guardado homicide investigation, long since closed, they're not providing us the full unredacted investigation. I don't know whether they're providing any of it because nobody's here to present it to us. But for purposes of this hearing, they're not providing all of it unredacted as demanded under our subpoena. And therefore, not only do we want a custodian of records to appear, but when we go into court, to Superior Court, to enforce our subpoena, we want the court to consider that they're raising apparently a confidentiality claim with respect to that subpoena. It's hard to read April Tardy's letter, actually. I mean, it's not written by a lawyer. It's hard to follow, but nonetheless, I think that's the position being taken. And we want that part of the record because we want the court not just to have a custodian of records here, but to rule on whether or not that homicide, what they provided us, and whether the full unredacted investigation by Homicide Bureau of the Guardado investigation should be produced to this commission. If they're claiming it's confidential, which I think they are, or at least parts of it, then our position is that we can go into closed session and receive that confidential information without any redactions. And I don't want to have to go to court, back to court more than once on this. So when we resume, I'm going to sort of set a record here, but on each of them. On the Perez use of force, they're basically saying they're giving us the same redacted version that they've given us before. They've given us the same redacted version that they gave to anybody that makes a Public Record Act request. And let me just make clear, and I want to make this clear to the Sheriff's Department, to County Council, and whoever else is listening. To say that we're making a Public Record Act request is insulting. We are subpoenaing these documents. This is a subpoena. It's not a request. And to apply Public Record Act request to a commission subpoena is frankly insulting. It insults our intelligence, and it's wrong. So with respect to the Perez investigation, if their claim is that all or part of the Perez use of force incident report, there was nobody disciplined for this, by the way. There's no internal investigation. This is just a force review report with respect to Perez. If their claim is that it's confidential, we want the court to determine whether or not any or all of it is properly claimed to be confidential, but we also want the court to rule on whether we can go to closed session to receive that report unredacted. The third one is the Brock use of force incident report that we requested. Their position there is that matter is still under an active investigation. So that raises a different issue, and it's an issue that we need to discuss with counsel as to whether or not, even though we carefully limited that subpoena of the Brock force to just the initial force review report, which contained the statements, by the way, apparently totally false statements by the deputy sheriff his name Benza. Whether that, if that's under active investigation, and that's the representation that under Sheriff Tardy made, whether or not we can enforce that subpoena. So with that said, we're going to take a break now. Then this commission is going into closed session to consult with counsel. And we're doing that under the government code that allows a Brown Act body to have closed sessions, attorney-client privilege discussions where there's anticipated litigation. And I'm just going to say for the record here, if anybody wants to challenge our going into closed session, that there is anticipated litigation. We anticipate suing the sheriff and the sheriff's department to enforce our 3 subpoenas. Okay, so with that, let's take a recess. We're going to go into closed session. So the audience and some other people are going to have to wait outside when we resume. Hopefully you'll stick around, because we'll then, after the closed session, we'll, at least in some generalization, we'll be able to tell you a little bit about what happened. I don't know how much. Okay, so let's stand in recess and then.
Chair Bonner?
Yes, pardon. Yes.
Thank you, Chair Bonner. Now, we appreciate your concerns. County Council appreciates the COC's desire to consult with County Council in closed session regarding legal issues related to the enforcement of these subpoenas. However, as you know, our office is in a difficult position because we cannot ignore Section 3.79.035 of the COC's ordinance, which states that while the COC is a Brown Act body, it is not authorized to meet in closed session.
No, it doesn't say that at all. It says because we're a Brown Act body, we can't go into closed session. And that's wrong. Of course, that's not consistent with the Brown Act. So that statement in .035, 3.79035, is an incorrect statement of the law. It has no force or effect of law. The Board of Supervisors, if they didn't want us to be able to go into closed session, they could have simply said, this commission cannot go into closed session. What they said, and by the way, this is language that either County Council wrote or it's certainly reviewed back in 2016. What it said is because the commission is a Brown Act body, it can't go into closed session, which is not correct. That's an incorrect statement of law, to which County Council, when I've spoken to them, agrees it's an incorrect statement of law. So it is not a binding on us. We're governed by state law here, and this is the government code. The government code clearly says that this commission can go into closed session to have an attorney-client privilege conversation like any other Brown Act body. So that's what we're going to do. But continue, Jensen, if you wanted to. By the way, get this, folks, really. This morning at 8 a.m., I get an email from County Council stating their legal position on this matter, that we can't go into we can't go into closed session because of this language in the our ordinance 3.79.035. Get it this morning. Of course, the simple solution for County Council is part of our revisions to .035 are just striking that language. But somehow we can't even get our revisions of 3.79 to the Board of Supervisors. We proposed this revision that would have eliminated this problem back in September of last year. So this is, by the way, it's just another example, and I hate to say it, I have great respect for Mr. Diaz, but I hate to say it, but County Council, the Sheriff's Department and County Council have been playing tag team here to keep this commission from getting access to confidential documents that are needed for oversight. And my position is that County Council, the position with respect to its reading of .035 is wrong. The board did not say we couldn't go into closed session. They recited incorrectly that the Brown Act says that, which is not the case. So we're going to go into closed session. We're going to do that after a 15-minute recess, and we're going to stand in, it's 10:59. We'll resume in closed session at 11:15. So don't come back in the room until we tell you it's okay.
Excuse me, Chair Bonner, and thank you for letting me continue. And your disagreement and your concerns are well noted and well established. That being said, we understand that the COC and the EO are working diligently on moving forward proposed amendments to the COC ordinance, which adds a provision for the COC to meet in closed session. County Council hopes that the proposed amendments move forward soon. Please note, we remain committed to assisting the COC with the enforcement of its subpoenas. Chair Bonner, though County Council regrettably advises that the COC cannot meet in closed session, our recommendation is that after today's meeting is adjourned, we schedule a meeting for yourself, Ms. Mosley, and County Council to discuss questions you may have related to the enforcement of the subpoenas.
Okay, well, that request is denied. We're not adjourning this meeting. We were going to have a recess and we're going into closed session. I want Harv Anand, who has represented us, I want him to be with us in this closed session because we need to ask him how we enforce these three subpoenas that have been absolutely rejected and defied by the Sheriff's Department on advice of County Council. As the sheriff just said, it's on advice of County Council that we don't even have a custodian of records here, much less documents that are of dubious constitution. Let me just say one other thing for the record here. The Guardado investigation is a use of lethal force. It is not even a confidential document. It is not a confidential document under Penal Code 832.7B. It's a public record and it's not to be redacted. There are no redactions for confidentiality. It is a publicly disclosable record and they won't even produce that to us in its entirety. Okay, let's take our break. We'll resume at 11:20.
Just bad this. $20 of that.
would help. There you go. All right, we're going to go back on the record for a moment, and then we're going to go into closed session. But if everybody could bring themselves to order here, have a seat. We're going to resume. Okay. All right, so we're back on the record at our public hearing at the moment before we go into closed session. And I want to say that we are going to go into closed session momentarily with our special counsel to the Civilian Oversight Commission, Max Huntsman. So we will be engaging in an attorney-client privilege conversation with respect to the anticipated enforcement of all or some of the subpoenas which have been defied today by the Sheriff's Department on advice of County Council. County Council, I understand, is refusing to participate in the closed session, so they're not going to be able to advise us, and so they will be excused. I'm also going to excuse most of the staff, except those essential that are needed for technology, the executive director, the deputy executive director, Ms. Jordan, but I'm going to excuse the rest of the staff, Christina, Joel, unless you can tell me why you need to be at the closed session, and Robert. So if you're going to be excused, and then I'm excusing all the audience here, please.
Excuse me.
Leave the room. No, wait a minute, sir. I'm speaking. I'm going to excuse all the audience here. If you would just begin to exit the room, I'd appreciate it so we don't spend too much time having to go into closed session. Now, by the way, you're happy. We're still in public session, so you can listen to what County Council wants to say. Mr. Diaz.
My apologies for interrupting. First of all, Chair Bonner.
Pardon?
I say my apologies for interrupting at that moment.
Okay. Sorry.
We are committed to supporting the commission's work in improving law enforcement oversight. I just want to point out that under 3.7.035, it specifically states in quotes, because the commission is a Brown Act body that is not authorized to conduct closed session, end quote. Therefore, County Council cannot ignore the plain reading of the ordinance that reveals that when the board created the COC was not given the authority to meet in closed session. Furthermore, Chair Bonner, if the COC does enter closed session without proper authority, there is a real risk that any closed session communications would lose the protection of attorney-client privilege. Now, I understand that you made the statement that you're going to meet in closed session with Special Counsel Huntsman, IG Huntsman. However, we would advise against that. County Council respects Inspector General Huntsman's role and authority within the county. However, under 6.44.190H of the County Code, it reads the Inspector General shall serve as special counsel to the Board of Supervisors and have an attorney-client relationship with the Board of Supervisors when requested by the board to provide privileged legal advice pertaining to a claim, lawsuit, or matter giving rise to significant exposure to litigation arising out of the actions of the departments or their personnel. As it relates to commissions, the county code also states, in quotes, the Inspector General shall also serve as special counsel to the commissions and have an attorney-client relationship with the commissions consistent with the attorney-client relationship the Inspector General has with the Board of Supervisors. Therefore, County Council's position is that the Inspector General is only special counsel to the commissions consistent with the attorney-client relationship the Inspector General has with the board. This attorney-client relationship only exists if the board specifically requests it. It is not clear here where the board ever requested that IG Huntsman act as a special counsel for this matter that you wish to speak to him about. In light of this, before Inspector General Huntsman acts as special counsel to the COC on this matter in closed session, County Council recommends that we first determine whether the board had requested that Inspector General Huntsman act as a special counsel on this matter.
Okay. What you don't understand, sir, is that, and I don't want to repeat things that have already been covered, but the language from .035 that you cited is an incorrect statement of the law. So the board didn't say we couldn't go into closed sessions. They simply incorrectly stated the law, presumably on a document that the county council itself reviewed. So we believe we can go into closed session. And we also believe that because the ordinance, there's an ordinance that has made Inspector General also special counsel to this Oversight Commission, that we can have an attorney-client privilege conversation with him pursuant to the exceptions in the government code to public hearings under the Brown Act. So that's what we're going to do. You've made your record. I'm now excusing you unless you believe you can actually give attorney-client privilege advice to this commission. And I take it you can't. So please leave.
Thank you, Chair Bonner.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the rest of the audience, okay, depart.
Oh my gosh, okay. Okay, where's my hammer and nails? I'm gonna nail you. Put in jail.